Shalloos. Welcome back, peoples. It's the fucking Critic Court. I am Toke, and I'm here to give you guys a review today on the movie called Sound of Freedom, and it was pretty sickening to watch. It was addressing the issue of human trafficking and you know like taking kids getting snatched up and sex trafficked and whatnot, and it's pretty fucked. It was pretty fucked because this shit's all based on a true story, like true events. It was real hard to watch, kinda knowing, in the back of my mind, it was fucking real, something that happened for real. Um, Hopefully, this, people that see this movie really open their eyes and the U.S. as a whole, um, the seriousness of human trafficking, because it's becoming more and more, you know, uh, more and more critical every year, and worse than any other, like drug trafficking, and all types of other stuff. That's very serious too, as far as like law. So yeah, we got this. It's about this guy named Tim Ballard. He's a federal agent of like Homeland Security and whatnot. He's he's been catching pedophiles and shit for years, but never you know never caught the victims, the kids, the people that got snatched up. And it's like, yeah, we're getting the main situation, the main culprit off of the streets, but what about, like I said, what about the victims? Like, you know, how deep does that, go as far as, a list of actual survivors and whatnot? People people made it back to their families actually, or made it back to their regular life in general, you know. And that really didn't sit right with him, so he took it upon himself to go out on this mission to, you know, save this, because he ended up saving this little boy named Miguel. And um, the little boy and Miguel had a sister, so he wanted him, Miguel, and this boy's only 8 years old, bro. Sister's 15. Um, he pretty much asked him for help. Like, he can get my sister back. If you can get me back, you can get my sister back. You do this for a living, right? Type of deal. And it was like, it was sad. The little story they showed of them and all the trials and tributes they went through after they got snatched up. And him being the righteous person he is, he's like, well, fuck. I mean, 'cause he's been doing this shit for 12 years. 12 years. He was coming up on obtaining his pension and everything. He had like 10 more months and shit. And the his boss or whatever, his chief, pretty much type of deal, um, didn't want him to even indulge in this type of mission because it's a dangerous game, and he might not make it back to his kids, but Tim told him like, what if this, what if this was your daughter? What if this was, your kids? What if you were going home to look at an empty bed? Like, come on now, this shit ain't right. Nah, fuck that. I'm about to, you know, I'm about to bring this girl back home and set an example, and you know, make make my actions be heard, type of deal for all the, for the whole U.S. as far as you know, the whole U.S. legislation and their whole, how they feel about this shit, because they're obviously not taking it as seriously as he did. Because this man went, he risked his life. He went all the way to Colombia. Like, this man was in the fucking Colombian islands, like jungle type of deal. He didn't got all reached all the way out there with it just to bring this girl back to her little brother and his dad. I mean her dad, I'm sorry. And you know, he even quit his job because the chief didn't, after he went to Colombia and whatnot, he and he realized what he was doing and how serious the issue was, you know, like his how threatening it could be for his life and whatnot. He told him, he told him, shorten this shit up, like get back on the plane, whatever you got to do, get back here. This case is done. And he was like, you know what, fuck you, like I'm quitting. I'm completing this mission. And you know, he ended up going beyond that too, and like uh fucking saving over like 120 victims and arrested like over a dozen of fucking traffickers in the long run. After the fact of saving a little girl, and once he returned back to the U.S., he made his little testimony on the whole the whole operation, how Colombia, how they ran on Colombia, and how they ran and shit, and fucking, you know, it made, like I said, it forced the U.S. to increase, their international cooperations and whatnot, and actually look at the fact of how how bad this is, how bad this is becoming. Like this human trafficking, sex trafficking, kidnapping kids, all that bullshit. It was starting to become, like I said, a big thing. It was what they said. I think they said it was like 150 billion $150 billion a year business. And the U.S. is like on the top destinations for it. So, and then also like among the longest, like largest like range of consumers of such such sexual child abuse. And man, like that shit was crazy to me, man. It was crazy. And it was, you know, it went all, and then they also didn't even stop there. They was turning these kids into children, like these children into slaves and whatnot. Turning these children into slaves and making them, do a whole bunch of bullshit. That's their life now, and that was pretty fucked up, bro. It was pretty fucked up, and it said too, how it was slavery is bigger now than what it was back then when it was legal. for children, and most of the slavery involves children. It's like millions, millions. Like what the fuck, man? That shit was wild. That shit was wild. But Tim had the cojones. Tim had the cojones to fucking do it. He fucking did it, bro. He he came. He saw. He conquered. He fucking did it. He had a little bit of help though. Obviously, you can't be a one man army. He had a whole bunch of insights. Like Vampiro, which is he was a former cartel colleague. Like he was the money laundering for the cartel, and he had a little encounter with, a little he experienced some shit with a prostitute in his past, and realized it was a little kid. After he did his dirty deed with him, and he didn't have no awareness of it. He thought, like I said, he's living out there in Colombia. Girls look fucking, grown and shit at like a certain age out there. So it was like, he thought in his mind, he thinks she's like 20, 25 type of deal. But nah, that bitch was 14. This little girl was 14. I'm sorry for my language. This little girl was 14. And he was like, that's when he realized there. That's when he changed he did a whole 360 in his life, and started taking an interest in, doing good instead of, doing what he was doing, being a criminal and whatnot, and going to buy these prostitutes, these little children and whatnot, and setting them free, setting them free, and giving them their life back pretty much. And that was pretty dope of him to help Tim out, because he asked him, he was like, after he got because he knew, he told him about how he saved the little boy, and how he's trying to save the little girl and all this shit. And he was like, how'd you feel? How did it feel for real? Like, did it feel good? Like a piece of chicken good, or like a pat on the back good? Like, express to me this. What's your true meaning? What are you trying to gain out of this? And he told him, he pretty much, explained to him. Kids, God's children are not for sale. That was his whole meaning of doing this. To make things right, like, just, and not feel like, he half-assed his job at the end of the night when he goes to sleep. Cause this dude Tim had like fucking five, 6 kids or some shit, and he had a whole ass family, So I can already, man, I can only imagine if he, he had to go through this, just like he felt, So, but yeah, Vampiro, he aided to his success of cracking down this case, this whole mission, this whole journey. They ended up setting up fucking the fucking, like the one of the members of the trafficking, the one that like gathers all of them, goes out and scout them all. Katie Giselle, that was her name, Katie Giselle. She would go to these parents' houses and pretty much, tell them, she's pretty much like she's looking for kids with talent. she's a talent recruiter pretty much, and they can be famous and promise them this and promise them that, and bring them to this audition and pick them up at this time, shit like that. And then when the parents come back to pick their kids up, there's no trace of them. They're always that whole building or that room is just completely empty. It's gone, and she didn't, you know, hauled their ass to the fucking boat, man. And that shit's fucked up. That shit's fucked up. To this day, man. Till this day, still, I know, it's fucking, cause this was not like recent. This was a little bit ago, you know, the story. So I know now Tim's still like I know Tim's happy, he what he did with the mark he didn't put on this, but I know it's still bad out there, human trafficking. I know it still is bad. It still is worse. So yeah, man. But Tim, he set up, like I said, he set up this trap or this little, this little hotel resort. He ended up getting the funds from this dude named Paul, and Paul, he pretty much he wanted the same thing that Tim wanted the shit to be put to a stop, and so he helped him and gave him the funds to open this hotel resort, and uh, just to attract pretty much the traffickers, and just pretty much a little a fucking whorehouse for kids and their fucking pedophiles that they can come and feel comfortable and not have to hide shit and feel like on edge. And yeah, they ended up arresting Katie Giselle and her little fucking council of traffickers and shit like that. And yeah, the little girl wasn't with them. She ended up getting sold to this island. This dude on the island called fucking, what was it? Narino Provence, which is like a very dangerous area uh, in the midst of Colombia. And, Tim had to portray as this doctor just to even. He got help from this dude named Jorge, which is another dude that helped him, further after the fact of saving the little girl. Arrest over the 120, or save those over 120 victims and arrest over a dozen of traffickers. Jorge was a cop, pretty much officer of Colombia type of deal, and yeah, he did his little 2 cents too. He told him like, this shit dangerous, bro. I can only get you so far type of deal to this island. Like I'll be waiting for you when you get off that water. We can flee quick as fuck, but this is some shit. You risking the biscuit, my boy. So yeah, man. That boy Tim did his thing. He did his thing, man. He did his thing. Uh, I would advise you guys, if you're gonna go see this movie, uh, obviously don't bring your fucking children. I mean that's common sense, but yeah, it's it's pretty fucked. It's pretty fucked up. Like I said, man, it's sad. It's sickening knowing that this was some true shit that happened. So, That being said, leave some comments, like and subscribe, support the motherfucking court. Fucking go see this movie, man. It's called Freedom. I mean, Sound of Freedom. It came out fucking on the 4th. It's a pretty, you know, pretty insightful movie. You guys would would really, you know, you'll learn something from this shit if you haven't. If you're, if you like knowledge of this type of thing. So, toodles.